Are you starting to feel that squeeze? Are these rising prices getting overwhelming, keeping you up at night? You're definitely not alone. Between the rising prices of gas and groceries, it's really hard to not just sit here and think of what I have to cut next to keep our heads above water. But when you live like I do, pretty much almost Amish, there's not much you can think about cutting out of your life in order to keep afloat. So you gotta get pretty resourceful, and you must depend on God to provide. So I have to start looking around my place and seeing the provisions that I already have and put them to good use. Because one of the first thoughts I had was maybe I shouldn't garden anymore, because it's really hard not to see the garden as a bunch of dollar signs. I mean, between the seeds, the soil, the tools, even fertilizer, it all adds up. And when you've already got a list that's pretty long of expenses, it's unthinkable to add anything more to it. Then it really got me thinking that stopping my garden, or I'm here to tell you, not starting one in the first place, would end up really costing me in the long end. And there's so many reasons why. And there's so many different things I can do with what God provides me around here in my own backyard in order to create an oasis, an abundance throughout my garden. I'm going to make it so my garden is actually a place of peace of mind, not a burden. And I'm going to do that by not spending any money on next year's garden. And I'll teach you how in this video. I've got 5 great hacks. Plus I'm going to throw in a couple more at the end if you stick around. We'll either get you started on that garden, and we'll make sure next year's garden brings you tons of abundance and happiness. Hi, welcome to God in the Greenhouse, where we dig into faith and soil. I'm Nicola, and I'm so happy you're hanging out with me. I'm excited to get into these hacks that I've come up with to keep our gardens going or get you started on next year's garden. So we'll get right into it. And one of my #1 ways to save money in the garden is by saving seeds. You can save seeds from your tomato plants, peas, and beans. If you're growing it, you can save the seeds from it. I'll leave a link above for a video I did on seed saving. There's also a ton of other videos out there on YouTube. Really, learn how to save seeds. It's one of the best ways you can start having free food for the rest of your life. Who wouldn't want that? It takes a lot of burden off your shoulders, especially with all these rising prices. And it's not going to stop. So, save yourself time, save yourself the money, save those seeds. If you can, save some extra for your neighbor, for your friends, for family, because if they haven't started a garden, if you haven't started in a garden, don't be afraid to ask for seeds, especially if these are from local people, because those seeds will grow really good in your garden because those plants have been acclimated to that situation. But if you have to buy seeds online, not a big deal. I'll leave some links in the description for some really good sales on some seeds, less than like 50 cents a pack. Because once you start growing from seed, then you can start saving seeds from those plants. So really you're only spending money once, and that's a good thing. Saving money is just as good as making money, right? So that's what we mean by God will provide. God provides us with the seeds. We provide the work, we grow the food, and we have nutrients. So yeah, let God provide and you start saving those seeds, save you a lot of money and a lot of stress next year especially. The second way I love to save money in the garden and to make the garden work for me is by creating a compost pile. I honestly couldn't have started my garden this year without my compost pile because we did not have any money for dirt or compost to buy at the store. So having that compost pile really saved me big time. and all my plants are doing so well because of it. Here's a little video I created with my daughter to teach you how to compost.
Here's a 5-step guide to making compost fast. First, find a shady spot in your yard for your pile. Next, gather your greens and browns, food scraps, leaves, grass cuttings, you name it, layer that stuff up and then add some water. Every couple weeks, turn the pile. You're going to be turning it quite a few times. And after a couple months, you'll have this beautiful composted soil made for free from scraps around your house.
So see how easy that is? Such a wonderful, great thing to start doing. And it literally is started for free. It's from all the scraps around you in your yard, in your kitchen. Just no meat or cheese products. You don't want all the flies and maggots and stuff, right? So keep it organic. Now the third way to start saving money in your garden is actually very simple, and I find it brings me a lot of peace of mind, and that is by starting a journal. Starting a journal can end up saving you a lot of money because you already have written down what worked, what didn't, where things were growing good, where they weren't, what kind of soil you were using, what did you put in your compost. You can journal so many things, so that way you have something really awesome to look back on next year when you start that garden in the spring. You're not second guessing yourself. Believe me, with everything going on in this world and our minds constantly racing, you're not going to remember what you think you're going to remember unless you write it down. So starting a journal is definitely on my top 5 list for things to do to save money and to create a peace of mind within your garden. And now that fourth way kind of goes with the journaling a little bit. I love to sit at the end of my gardening year and start making a layout for my next year's garden. While everything's still fresh in my head of what went on in this year's garden. So I compare notes in my journal, I make a map of what my garden looks like, and then I start mapping out what I want it to be next year. Because it is good to rotate your crops. So you don't want to necessarily have everything mapped out the same way. You want to move things around. You also want to see, okay, where did the sun hit best this year? Next year it might be a little different because we do change positions as this big planet goes through the solar system, and things can be a little different for next year's garden. These are all things that we want to think about and start getting ready for next year, because getting ready this year will save us the money that we need to save next year, because next year is just going to be worse than this year if we let it be. But we can start taking control of the things like the food in our life. If we start building up a food safety net, then we do have a lot less stress in our lives. Then we can pay attention to all those other expenses and not feel like you've got so much going on in the background, because you're stable, at least in one of the most important parts of your life. And knowing God will provide, and to be depending on His provisions to grow your garden is just going to add to that peace of mind. Now, even though this is mostly about not spending money and depending on God's provisions that He has provided around us in order to grow our garden for basically free, the fifth way I have to save money in the garden does involve spending a little bit of money, but it's spending it at the right time so you get more for your money, because saving money is just as good as not spending it or making it. So hit up those garden centers at the end of the season. There are so many good sales going on. You could actually even get some pepper plants or annuals for 90% off. And I mentioned the pepper plants because you can winterize your pepper plants and keep them indoors and continuously grow them for a couple years, which makes them a good money saver as well. But yeah, all those garden centers are going to have all those tools on sale. You could even get soil for next year if you're just starting your garden this year. So let's think about what we can do to help ourselves next year now, so we're not kicking ourselves in the butt next year when we're sitting there thinking, man, I should have listened to Nicola. I should have went to that garden center and got those tools now. I should have bought that dirt back in August, September, October when everything was on sale. Because it really does help when today's Nicola helps tomorrow's Nicola. I'm always thinking that. Like when I don't want to do the dishes at the end of the night. I'm like, will tomorrow morning's Nicola look at that empty sink and think, thank you, last night's Nicola. And that happens quite a bit in my life. And on those days that I do help myself for the next day, I end up getting so much done that next day. A lot more than I went to bed thinking about doing. And that's just because I set myself up. And I want to do the same for next year. Because if anything has stayed consistent throughout our lives these past couple years, is the fact that the prices and the chaos in our world is just going to keep rising, right? It's just going to keep getting worse. So the best thing we can do for ourselves is to create a sense of security, a safety net, and we can start with our food, because that's one of the most important things in our life. Without food, we don't have nutrition, and without nutrition, we don't have energy, and without energy, we can't get things done. It all goes hand in hand, right? God can and will provide, but we also have to put in the work, the thought process, and the effort to get the things that God provides. We can use the things that God provides to also make the things that we're working on work better for us. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end. Now, these bonus tips I have for you are simple, easy ways that you can save a lot of money starting now. One of those ways is by making a compost tea. If you don't know what a compost tea is or how to make it, I'll leave this link above. Click on that, and that's a short, quick video, teach you all about it. And that second bonus tip I have for you is just a reminder to start drying out your herbs now so you have them to use throughout your winter. Fresh herbs throughout the winter is a great way to add not only nutrients but wonderful flavor to all your savory dishes. Now, saving herbs and drying them out can be as simple as taking them and bundling them up and hanging them in a nice, dry, airy place, or even spreading them out on a cookie sheet and putting them on your lowest setting in the oven for a couple hours. Herbs are a great way to save money, especially at the grocery store. And even if you live in like an apartment setting, you can grow herbs in your own kitchen window. So yeah, get on those herbs, start harvesting them now, getting them dried out, and you'll be so thankful you did this winter. I really hope that my ideas help you out some. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps to make it get through that algorithm, especially if you're a subscriber, which I thank you so much for. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. It's a newer channel, and we're still all learning together, giving each other advice, just talking about God, living through His love and provisions, trying to save money and stay afloat within this crazy, chaotic world, right? If you have any tips or tricks that you would like to share with all of us, please leave a comment. I love to hear from all of you. I hope you all have a very blessed day, and we'll see you in the next video.